How you been?
Good.
So what's new with Cortina Precision?
Oh man, just a lot of the same, I guess.
Well, so what's the most recent product you've had come out?
We have that V3 Easy Tuner, which is
Okay.
you can use with any muzzle device, including suppressors, or none at all. Like if you have a rimfire, you don't have to use a muzzle device, so you can use it. It's the most versatile tuner we have.
That's cool. So there's a bunch of things I want to talk to you about in this episode. And I know that the last time that you and I had a conversation, we were also talking about some external ballistic stuff,
right?
Some drag curve stuff. And I know you just had the MDT guys out. I think they were out at your place, and then I had
Correct.
Francis come here before we shot a PRS match that's just down the road from me. So I just want to get caught up and chat with you and talk about mainly reloading stuff. So your dies, some differences between your dies and other dies and things like that. So, and then obviously we have that fireside chat, that we're going to do at the end of this episode here. But,
and I need to have you back on my podcast to finalize that conversation about drag curves and ballistics.
Yeah, that's right. I couldn't remember if it was on your episode or mine.
Yeah, it was on mine. And we need to get back to that. It's just, Kleckner just released his book talking about how BC is dead, and
well, let's talk about. That's good. That's a good opener. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, because I'm going to have him on the podcast pretty soon, and we're going to talk about that. So I think this is all going to tie everything together. Because I agree. That's essentially what you were talking about, right? Like BC.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, so I think that from my point of view, ballistic coefficient is to model a single point trajectory. I think BC is still a viable option, especially in the supersonic flight range. But when it comes to utilizing, and I think also BC is great for comparing different projectiles. Right. So that's a numerical value that you can assign to a projectile and say, okay, this one does this, and then this one does that. This one is more slippery. This one's less slippery. But when it comes to using a ballistic coefficient to solve for a trajectory prediction or a solution, there's way better options out there, because with a ballistic coefficient, you're only utilizing, there's only one numerical value assigned to that projectile as it flies across its entire flight path, which is why there's variations or holes in between in your solutions, right? So sometimes you'll see a bullet, you'll say, okay, I'm dialed in with this BC at this distance, and then I shoot at a different distance and my data trends like 1/10 to 2/10 up or down, plus or minus, wherever it is on the scale. The reason for that is the bullets do not always fly the same exact profile as the standardized drag curve. And it's really difficult, if not impossible, unless you use stepped BCs to correct all those. It's because a BC, the numerical value, the form factor of the form factor integer of the equation changes because the form factor of the bullet changes as it flies through the sky and slows down. So that's where BC can be limiting in calculating really, really accurate trajectory predictions, because now with the advent of the firm emplacement of Doppler radar into the equation, we don't need ballistic coefficient to calculate a trajectory. But it's still you have to have something to compare one bullet to the next. And so for that, BC is good. So I don't know, what's your perspective on that, and what do you think?
I agree. You got to have a starting point with everything you do, right? You can't have. You can't go and select I guess not select, but you can't go and have a model drag curve for every bullet initially, right? Just to see what kind of bullet's going to fit your needs. You have to have some kind of metric. Hence,
you do.
BC, right? And we had the G1 back in the day, which is essentially a pointy bullet with a flat base, right? And then as the bolt tails became more popular, then we kind of, I feel like we're still in the transition period for some reason. I don't understand why did they go, hey, by the way, this is a G7. But I think they're trying to make it backward compatible. Is the only reasoning for why they would still include the G1 BC. But they shouldn't, right? Why? Because G7 matches closer to the profiles that we currently use with the bolt tail and the kind of more aerodynamic bullets. I think it's a marketing. For marketing purposes also, which is probably the main thing, because even though G7 matches closer to the profiles, it just doesn't look as good, right? Because they used to be talking about 600 lower. BC, 700. You know, some of these bullets are approaching 700 G1, and then they go to G7. All of a sudden, they're in the 300s. The good ones, you know, the bad ones are not bad, but the less efficient ones are in the 200s. All of a sudden, they look really bad, just compared to the common, conversations that people were having about their BC. And if people don't understand G7 in the marketing, it sounds really bad, right?
It's also an education thing, right? It's an education thing. Like, why is this number different? Why is this number approximately half of the G1 number?
Right.
Well, it's because the standard G7 projectile compared to the standard G1 projectile on the Ingalls scales has exactly half the drag.
Correct.
Of a G1, right? So there's that too.
Yeah. So, there's that. As far as do we need it? Yeah, I think we need BC. I mean, like I said, like you said, it's a really good initial. It serves as kind of the first line of defense in figuring out which bullet you can use. Now, is it the determining factor? No, I don't think it is. I don't think it should be. As you know, I helped a lot of people get started reloading and such, and they get so hung up on BC sometimes. Yeah. For no reason other than it's sexy, right? For example, they say, hey, well, I'm using this bullet and I'll help them. Perfect example. I'll help them get started. And I go, here, had a 6.5 Creedmoor starting out. I said, here, one of the best bullets that I found for the 6.5 Creedmoor was the 130 grain Berger OTMs. I said, these things are great. Recoil is not as bad. And they just flat out shoot. Well, I set them up. I literally set up the rifle, gave them the base to ogive dimension. I make them a dummy round. I said, this is just, you can compare everything against this dummy round going forward. And if you just make them just like this dummy round, you'll be fine. And they go off and they're having great success and they're practicing. And then all of a sudden they just send me groups like, hey, this thing's not grouping so good. What's going on? And I'm trying to figure out what it is that could have went south. And, of course, the typical questions, how many rounds through the barrel? Just trying to see if the barrel's burnt out. No, turns out that doesn't check out. It's got like 700 rounds. Like, no, that's not it. Have you been cleaning the barrel? Yes, I've been cleaning the barrel. And like 6 questions later, I find out that, oh, by the way, I changed bullets. I'm like, okay. Well, why did you change bullets? It's like, well, because... I went to, 147 Hornady or a 156 Berg. I'm like, why did you do that? Well, they have a higher BC. They're better in the wind. And I'm like, they can be, right?
They can be.
They can be. Yes. How far are you shooting? Oh, I'm shooting 300 yards. Like, then why do you care? Why do you care about a 156 or a 147? The 130 is... It's just absolutely plenty good, right? So that is, it's a very easy way to, hey, this one's got a BC of this, that, and the other. Does it fit your needs? Do you really need this massive BC increase, right? I mean, 308s, right? Like, just if you compare everything to a 308, you will find out that you're already ahead. If you have a 6.5 Creedmoor, right?
Even with like the fattest, slowest bullet that you can shoot, I mean, out of a 6.5.
That's what I mean. But they always, and listen, I'm also guilty of it. We always want more, right? And at some point, it takes a lot of trigger time and a lot of maturity as a shooter to understand that at some point, BC is not gonna solve your problems, your win reading
1,000%.
And that right there is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. Speed and BC are not going to solve your wind reading issues.
Right.
You have to learn how to do it on your own.
100%, man. Absolutely. And one of the things that I've noticed big time, you can come on in, babe. Yeah. My wife's bringing me a cup of coffee. Thanks, babe. So we see one of the trends that I see a lot nowadays is with new shooters coming in, the first thing that they want to talk about is their SDs. They're like, my SDs, my SDs, my SDs. I'm just like, it's like, let's see how you shoot your rifle first. Let's see what you're capable of producing with regard to dispersion with that rifle and what's going on with that. Because, and then once we do that, we sit down and we go through and say, okay, let's say for an example, we're at that magic number 1,000 yards away, and let's just say you have a standard deviation of 20 feet per second, and we put it up. We should like, hey, if this bullet comes out at average, this bullet comes out 20 feet faster, this bullet comes out 20 feet slower, where are they at on the target? And they look at
my
the
rifle's
numbers.
A quarter MOA.
It's not much.
It's nothing.
Much. And you ask them, they're like, can you shoot into that? And the real technical Tinas, like the you know how when you have a conversation with someone that's like, they have no desire to understand your point of view. They just have their point of view. That's it. Period. End of story. And that's all I'm doing. Yeah. And they're like, but it's forgiveness.
Yeah.
But
they don't let facts get in the way of their opinion.
Right. Exactly. And so then you say, okay, cool. I want you to try to, let's go out, like walk right out of the classroom, and we're going to go out, and there's a 3 MOA, a 2 MOA, a 1 MOA, and a half MOA target at my 1,000-yard berm. Okay. Take a cold shot and see if this matters, right? What does this matter? And I think the big thing that we focus on in the intro class is trying to explain to shooters what does actually matter, right? When you come to all of these nuances, because there is a definitive science to our craft, right? Or our chosen sport. But then there's also the art form of it that you have to have a good, solid understanding of what the science is in order for you to apply the art. And then that's also knowing and having discretion and saying, okay, well, when I'm at this threshold, this stuff starts to matter. Or when I'm inside that threshold, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, or at a PRS match, when you say guys are ranging targets and they're like, oh, that target's 3 yards off. I'm like, yeah, cool. It's at 450 yards. Right. Who gives a shit if it's 3 yards off?
It's a full
like, it doesn't matter.
At 450 rather than 453, right?
Yeah, it's just like, guys, come on, man. Like, let's just start focusing on the things that matter, which is wind calling and building solid, fundamentally sound shooting positions. That's it, right? That's the only thing that matters.
My nephew asked me to train him one time. You want to shoot, as you said, the magic number, 1,000 yards. And I said, sure, I'll teach you how to shoot 1,000 yards. And I'm super excited, right? He comes in here. And I made him dry fire for like 4 hours. Just in the,
he's like, whoa, I didn't sign up for this.
What are we going to shoot? I said, well, first you need to get this right. Like you're just dry firing, you're flinching. Like we're not, you're nowhere near ready to shoot a live round. So I'm getting him there and I'm working on his position and it's, hand and all that stuff. And he's there. And I said, okay, now get up, pick up your rifle, pick up your bag. And now get back down and sit up again and start. And so he finally put up with about 4 hours, and of course he kept complaining. And because he's like, well, when are we going to shoot? When are we going to shoot? I said, well, when you're ready. I just kept saying, whenever you're ready. And he says, so I said, okay, come back tomorrow and we'll go shoot at 100 yards. He goes, 100? When are we going to shoot 1,000? I said, first, we're going to do a lot of 100-yard shooting. Needless to say, he quit the class because he wanted to go straight to 1,000. I said, you don't go straight to 1,000. You just don't. Yep. Right? Yeah. Now, I don't know if you ever seen that group that I shot on. It's on YouTube. It's an 1.25 inch group at 1,000 yards.
I have seen that.
4 of those shots were half inch. Okay. The extreme spread was 19 on that group, and I referenced that group a lot to people that worry so much about extreme spread. They worry so much about it that they get stuck trying to lower the ES rather than just going and shooting. Right. And the last shot that kind of went outside the group is not the one that raised the ES. The ES was already 19 before the last, those 4 shots in half an inch at 1,000 yards where they were 19. They had an ES extreme spread of 19. So I always point people in that direction and go, listen, you don't have to believe me, but go watch, because they get stuck. So when they ask me, what's an acceptable ES? I go 20 or less. Right away, I imagine they start thinking, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about because the internet said single digit, right? Now, yeah.
Single digit on an ES.
Extreme spread, right? Not even SD. Extreme spread. So I tell them.
I need to go back to the reloading bench.
I'm telling you, and that's the problem, right? They get stuck in the reloading bench trying to lower their extreme spread or standard deviation. I always do extreme spread because I always tell people that's how, in F class, that's how you're measured. You're measured by the worst 2 shots that you have, So extreme spread, but SD, I like it around 5 or 6. Definitely single digit, but not 1 or 2 because you're not. Now, in F class, we shoot 20 shots. So you can imagine if I have 20 ES or less for 20 shots, I am even 30. I'm perfectly fine for 20 shots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing with, now there are, like you guys are shooting for groups. One of the things.
We shoot for score.
Yeah, you shoot for score, and you're trying to keep as many shots in that X ring as absolutely possible.
Well, actually, 10 ring or X ring. Yeah, 10 or X. The 10 ring is 1 MOA. The X ring is half MOA. So, but 20 shots under. You get 30 minutes. You get a 30-minute window, and inside the 30-minute window, if we're shooting string fire, you got to put 20 shots on that target. Rain, shine, wind. Whatever.
You got 30 minutes to do it. That's your window.
You can choose to do it in 5 minutes or you can take up all 30. And of course, every time I say 30 minutes, people go, oh, well, like, why do you need that much time? Sometimes not enough time because it's enough time. It's always enough time. It's actually an excessive amount of time if you don't know how to read the wind. If you just shoot. But your score's not going to be good. Now, if you know how to read the wind and you're trying to pick your way through it and maybe wait for conditions that'll favor your score and avoid the ones that will hurt it, then 30 minutes sometimes is not enough because you're waiting for those cycles. And those cycles sometimes are very short. You get 2, 3, 4 shots off and then you got to stop. So if you actually know how to read the wind, 30 minutes, when you're trying to put them all inside of as close to half MOA as possible, sometimes 30 minutes is not enough. But that's the beauty of F class. It's the wind reading. That's where the art is. Right. Shooting is. Shooting is fairly simple.
Well, I'll go back to the good old social media, right? I not too long ago, you had a guy commenting, you had a young female shooter, right? And she was running her rifle and she's like, hey man, I see the conditions and we're going to go. And she just went, right? And she's shooting that rifle and the way that your rifles are set up and people don't understand that we're testing certain aspects of of the whole part of the game, right? So in my classes, I refer to it as the circle of components. We have the rifle, we have the optic, the ammunition, and then the shooter, right? So each of these different shooting disciplines that we participate in focus on different aspects of that circle of components, right? So like F class is very, very much focused on building an extremely precise rifle, coupling that with extremely precise ammunition. And the shooting aspect of it, the actual fundamentals of marksmanship aspect of it, are not nearly as important as somebody shooting like a 10-pound hunting rifle for groups. Because the system is designed to be as forgiving as possible for your purposes, right? You want a heavy rifle, you want it held very firmly with a solid front and rear rest. And all I care about is making sure that my bullets are as consistent, flying through the air as consistently as possible, so that I can read those conditions and shoot those really, really tiny groups.
That was the main misconception about that video. And I didn't do, and I'm actually going to go back and because I have, that video is obviously way longer than what I posted. And I actually zoomed out to see the full setup. Yeah. She's using a Neo X front rest, mechanical, with a joystick where you can aim, and a rear bag. Now, she's shooting a PRCW, 180 grain bullet at a 2,900 feet per second or so.
Yep. It's going to move.
Yeah. The reason that I filmed her is because of how smooth everything moves. Now, it appears as if she's doing nothing. It appears as if the rifle's clamped on. It is not. That's the thing. That rifle is not clamped on. And I intend to do a video about what happens if you really do nothing, because they go, oh, she's just squeezing the trigger. I'm actually going to do a video with my rifle, my setup, just squeezing the trigger so that people can see how much that rifle moves and torques. Now think about it. It's a 180 grain bullet. Just think about the torque. Forget everything else. Those rifles are not clamped on. It's literally illegal to clamp your rifle on. It's against the rules. The rules indicate that you have to be able to lift the rifle out of the rest at any time, because we have a weight limit. Anything attached to the rifle counts towards the weight of the rifle. Okay? So if you lift the rifle and the rest is so tightly attached to it that it comes up with it, they add the weight of the rest to the rifle. Now you're illegal, right? It's against the rules.
Got it.
So
what's the max weight?
22 pounds.
Oh, okay.
No brakes, no nothing. Yeah, exactly. Like people go, oh, well, you guys use it. I have seen much heavier rifles in PRS.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when 22 guys were all in this 22 BR craze. Right. I remember this dude from Utah. He had a 27-pound 22 BRA. Yeah. And I was like, dude, what are you doing?
So
it's ridiculous.
Now let's go through the rules. 22 pounds maximum weight for the rifle. No brakes allowed. We are not allowed to have a brake.
Okay.
So this is just no recoil reduction whatsoever. And she's shooting a 180 grain bullet at 2,900 feet per second out of a 22 pound or less rifle. Okay.
Yeah. There's some recoil there.
Now she's 14 years old. She's probably 100 pounds, if that. She does have a RAD system, which is a recoil reduction. It's a hydraulic butt pad. Okay. But that's it. Now, the beauty in this whole thing, this entire video, is she has this thing set up so good, and she's set up behind this rifle in such a manner that rifle doesn't torque, doesn't beat the crap, and she'll squeeze the trigger. And that's kind of the thing, because she puts her finger on the bottom of the trigger guard, and she'll just slide it, and then she kind of does it like this.
She gets in contact with it on that point.
She touches it right at the bottom, the trigger. The rifle goes off, hits her shoulder. Now her shoulder's out of the way of the video, which is another reason people think she's not doing anything. Hits her shoulder, and then she kind of lets her shoulder go. She's not trying to stop it. She kind of rolls her shoulder with it, and then she rolls her shoulder back, The rifle's back in position. She'll open the bolt, throw another round in there. She'll kind of look at the condition, move the joystick, and squeeze off another one. She shot a perfect score, which means 20 shots inside of one MOA at 1,000 yards. Now, how many people can do that? All right.
Not any very rifle, many, man.
Right?
Not very many.
Now, I say that this is equivalent to a professional pool player. When you watch a professional pool player and you go, oh, hell, pool's not that hard.
It looks easy.
Look at that. I mean, the guy just, all the shots are right there.
Tapped it in. Just tap it in.
Tap it in. Same thing with golf, right? You watch a good golfer. And
my gosh.
Like, you watch the pros and you go, oh, well, it's not that hard. Same thing. Like she has countless hours behind this rifle. Dry firing. I mean, it's just, and it's all right there to the point that grown men are pissed off on social media and talking about how she ain't doing anything, and my 3-year-old can do that. Whatever. Remember that guy that wanted to bet $100,000?
Yeah. Whatever happened to that? I'll
tell you what happened to that guy. So he said, he'd bet $100,000 that his $100,000 that his kid, he goes, I wouldn't even do it. I'll let my kid do it. And I said, I'll take you up on it. And he says, send me a DM. So I sent him a DM. I said, all right, dude, let's go. And he says, okay, you guys shoot? Well, first he says, I'm going to pull all the ammo apart and verify everything. I'm like, you're not pulling anything apart. I said, because that's going to disrupt the ammo.
What?
I said, I will bring 100.
Special sauce in here?
Well, he just wants to make sure there's no cheating going. I said, I get it. I said, what I will do is I will bring a box of 100 and you pick your 3 and I'll pick, you pick the ammo out of that, randomly. I don't care. I don't care where you pick mine. You pick yours. They're all the same. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
I said, I'll shoot. And then, your kid can shoot. And, he goes, yeah, and all he has to do is hit the target. I said, no. The bet was that he can shoot as good a group or better than me. That was the bet. And I actually sent him a screenshot because I saved it because I figured this guy's going to back down. And then he replied with, oh, yeah, like, what is it going to look like to you to take to beat a 5-year-old kid? I said, well, it's not me, idiot. It's you running your mouth that said this. Don't put this on me like I'm the idiot here. You're the idiot that made that bet for $100,000. So let's do this. And he said,
you roped your kid into it.
Yeah, I said, you're the one that brought your kid into it. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll let you shoot, And he said, no, I just got to hit the target. I said, no. The bet is that you can shoot a smaller group than me. And I said, I'll tell you what. I said, I'll let you off the hook. Just show up to an F-class match. I'll bring all the equipment. Just show up and just try it. And I know he won't, but I finally just let him off the hook because I knew that wasn't going to go anywhere. He was just running his mouth, trying to make a point, which he doesn't really know. That's the idea. That's the whole point. He doesn't really know what he's talking about, but he's just and he goes, I hunt all over the world. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you hunt. It's you made a dumb statement. You made $100,000 bet publicly. I'm taking you up on it. Now you're backing down. I figured that would happen. But again, the entire purpose of this conversation is she was... That's what hours and hours behind a rifle looks like. When somebody really good is shooting, that has really mastered in the handling of the rifle. That's what it looks like. It looks like she's doing nothing. That's what it looks like. Because she was super consistent. Shot after shot, it was identical. She rolled her shoulder back. I guess she figured out that if she tried to literally stop the rifle, it hurt or whatever was happening. So she just rolls her shoulder out of the way and pushes it back. I don't know. It was beauty in motion. That's why I filmed it, because it was. That is a perfect example of what practice and hours of dry firing can get you. The recoil, that's a good conversation right there to move into, is recoil, and probably what she's figured out by allowing the rifle to just move and her not try to stop it. She most likely detected inconsistencies in the rifle's performance dispersion characteristics by trying to stop it.
right? Because there's no way that she's able to do that consistently over 100% of the time. You're familiar with Jeff Seward?
Yes.
So he said something pretty profound when I first started listening to him, and then I got his book. I listened to him on the Hornady podcast when I got his book, and there was one episode where he was talking about dispersion characteristics, and he broke it down. He's like, it's really simple. Dispersion characteristics are based on, in his opinion, two things: bullet bore interaction, right? How straight and concentric is your bullet flying down the barrel, or how straight and concentric did it enter and engrave? And then number two, barrel pointing. Where is the barrel in time and space the instant the bullet uncorks from it and goes on its way to the target? And one of the things that that we've learned over the years is I think people blamed a lot of inconsistencies or phenomena that they couldn't experience or explain the purpose behind in any other way. And we're seeing now that it's largely related to barrel pointing, right? Angle of jump throughout the process of recoil. Because we know that the barrel starts moving, the rifle moves rearward instantly as soon as the process of recoil begins. It's undeniable. And the longer that process takes, and the heavier the bullet and the more recoil, the more propensity we have for the barrel to move or be inconsistent in the process of recoil. Notice this with shooting heavy cartridges, like 338 Lapuas off of tripods and field shooting conditions, right? To put a bag up on this rock, your position's all not really great. You're going to have to figure out how to make it work. But then we also have a 300 grain bullet getting pushed by 95 grains of powder going down range at 3,000 feet a second, 2,800 to 3,000 feet a second. That's going to move, right? It's going to move your body. And when you practice that stuff, guys will shoot a prone group, and then they'll get into a tripod standing position. They'll shoot that same group at 100 yards, and they'll notice that their point of impact shift is changed consistently, sometimes upwards 1.5 to 2 MOA. They're clustered. They've got a group, but the group is centered left, right, up, or down from the point of aim. And then you'll see that walk on different targets, right? You'll see it like, hey, seated position, we're printing about a minute low. Standing position, I'm a minute left. And they're just like, why is that? And it's like, okay, well, now we're going to tweak body position. We're going to tweak how you hold on to the rifle. We're going to tweak the pressures that you use to hold on to the rifle. And then we're going to do it again. And we're going to see what's going on. Because we're always under this assumption that if the gun's zeroed mechanically at 100 yards and everything's good, I should be able to take that rifle, put it into any other support structure, be it clipping into a tripod, running it on a bag, and it should do the exact same thing. And it doesn't. And that's why PRS guns are the way that they are. They're built specifically for that level of forgiveness. So that way I can have a mistake or let a couple of, I call them the touch points, the 8 touch points of how we physically connect to the rifle. You can let a couple of those go with a gun that's super forgiving, and you're not going to get bit super hard. But if you're shooting like a lightweight rifle, like a hunting rifle that recoils more heavily, you can't, because you're going to get a flyer. You're going to get a zinger because the recoil dynamics. And that's where people like hunters, we just had a guy out, Jay Nickel. He brought a 6.5 pound 6.5 PRC. And yeah, he's not a small dude by any stretch, but
doesn't matter.
The results showed up on target, right?
Yeah.
And so he's like, he had to really mentally get into the right game by looking at his rifle's performance and saying, this is what it is, and this is what I'm going to deal with over the course of these next 3 days of training. When the guys to his left and the right have more tactical oriented rifles or PRS oriented rifles that are heavier, shooting bullets that are not as heavy as he was shooting 147s out of his PRC. So it's like, you're going to experience way more movement, and the gun's going to be harder to aim because it's lighter. It's going to, you're going to have more
less stable.
Yeah. It's just inherently less stable. So, those things matter. And I think
there's going to be shooter fatigue from recoil.
100%. Yeah.
Extended periods of time.
Yeah. And so you also brought up a topic of flinching. And so when you see somebody flinch, right, when you see him blink when the gun goes bang, I've kind of equated that through just like anecdotal observing students and then coaching them. And when I see somebody flinch, it's generally speaking it's a mental concentration issue. Our bodies are designed to not like that stimulus of firing a rifle. It's a blast. It's a startle response. Your brain's like, I don't like that. Like that's not, we're not supposed to be here. That's danger.
No, you're getting punched.
Yeah, you're getting punched. It's the same thing as like walking into a room and somebody plays a trick on you and like hops out with a Michael Myers costume on it. Scares the shit out of you, right? Your first instinct is to back away and create separation as a result of that startle to figure out to be safe, right? When you shoot a rifle, it's the same exact thing. Your body doesn't know the difference. And you have a dummy round, right? You get a dummy round right here and people are like, oh, we can dry fire that out. We can dry fire that out. It's like, no, I don't think you can. I don't think that you can. I think that it is a mental focus thing. And it's a mental focus thing because conscious thought, we can only think about one thing at a time, right? We know that we can't multitask. We can only think about one thing at a time. And your subconscious mind is really good at doing, as long as we can harness the power of the subconscious mind to do things like build the position, connect ourselves to the rifle, make sure that our body is doing everything as consistently as possible, we can wire those neurons to have those pathways completely set and do that work for us. But then there's the conscious mind that like the subconscious can't make a wing call. And the subconscious, I don't believe, should be pressing the trigger. I think the conscious mind needs to be doing those things. The conscious mind needs to be like, hey, this is what the Mirage looks like. This is what my wing call should be. And when it comes down time to press the trigger, what are we thinking about in the moments of pressing the trigger? Where are your thoughts? Have you ever thought about that, Eric? Like where your actual thoughts are when you press the trigger?
Yes. Now, do you want... People always say, I want to be surprised when I squeeze the trigger. I'm like, absolutely not. I don't want to be surprised. Do you? Like, what's your, where are you at on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've gone back and forth on this. And one of the things that, so I talked about this with Francis on the podcast. And long story short, I had a student come out and he didn't tell me that he was an Olympic shooter. And he just very unassuming dude came through the class and I observed him select a target, pick his rifle up in the offhand, standing offhand supported, one shot, boom, rifle goes off. And like, I see where he's pointing up the hill and I know which, like, those are the long range targets, smashing shit. Like pick one, shoot at it, hit it. Put the rifle down, pick another one, shoot at it, hit it. And I was like, bro, that's like, I can't do that. That's my weakness right there. That's my kryptonite. So he called me afterwards and he started to ask me questions. He's like, man, I had a great time at the class. And I think that you're like the marksmanship fundamentals are on point. He goes, but I'm going to ask you a question. When you shoot, you specifically tell people to focus on the reticle when they're aiming. And I'm like, I do. And he said, well, have you ever actually thought about what you truly are looking at when you're shooting your rifle? Like at the moment that you decide I'm going to press the trigger? And I'm like, I think I do. And then he says, well, I think you should probably go to the range and check. And I said, okay, all right. So I went to the range and sure as shit, if the reticle was solid and stationary, meaning there was no wobble zone, I could superimpose the reticle over the target and say, this is my aiming point and press the trigger. Go through my breath and press the trigger, go through my shot sequence. But as soon as that reticle has motion, as soon as it's moving, right? As soon as it's moving around, or I have a moving target, if your eyeball tracks the reticle, you're totally screwed. You will always punch the trigger. You will always anticipate that shot because your subconscious is battling for control over what to do, right? So if I'm looking at the reticle crossing the target, this is where the whole trust the wobble thing comes from, right? So set your natural point of aim. You establish your natural point of aim. You set the natural point of aim over the target. Maybe you got a 2/10, 3/10 mil wobble zone, and that's as good as you can get. Cool, right? I can't squeeze anything else out of the position for stability, so I'm just going to let that float. Then we ignore it, right? Once you set that reticle over the target and you just let it float, I'm looking through the reticle, and I want to put my center point focus on where I want the bullet to cut that target, or whether it be cutting the paper or splashing on steel. As soon as because that was what he was trying to tell me in that phone conversation. He wanted me to go try to figure it out on my own. And it did. It was like, as soon as I just needed a little bit of guidance to say, this is what to look for. Dude, once that got solidified and I really truly sunk into that, your marksmanship will change. Everything will change.
Have you ever noticed how bench shooters never shoot out the center?
They never shoot at the center of the target, right? They always have
aim
their
at the center.
They aim at the center, but the groups print.
They print somewhere other than their point of aim.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're trying to focus right, on the target, like just the most precise point, right?
Yeah.
And if you shoot it out, now you just kind of lost your point of
That's
aim,
right.
Right.
Right. So
now, but what about the trigger? Do you want to be surprised or not?
Yeah. So the thought, that's the great point. It's like, okay, so how do we disconnect the subconscious mind from the equation and say, no, you need to go sit on the bench right now because I don't need you. I need my conscious mind to do this. So for me, what works for me is I have a little mantra in my head that when I see the sight picture that I like, that's acceptable for this particular shot, I'm like, okay, we're going to go. I say in my mind, there it is. And as soon as I say, there it is, my sole purpose, my sole focus goes to the trigger press. And I talk myself through the trigger press. I just start, my fingers married to the trigger, and I say, trigger, 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 trigger. And as I'm saying that, I'm pressing and I'm pressing and I'm pressing. I'm adding more pressure to the trigger. Mm-hmm. I know pretty much when it's going to go, but it's not like a press now, right? It's a steady press. But I know my trigger well enough that I know when it's going to go.
So I don't want to be surprised. And that's the reason for the triggers that I use, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I want that to go off exactly when I want it to go off, right? Mm-hmm. Because when I'm shooting F-class, I am focused on the wind. And just like I talked about earlier, there's these windows in which, now, I want my target, and you do this a lot, like you think about wind and target size all the time. But with my rifle, one of my target is 2.2 miles an hour wide.
Right.
If I'm in the center, that gives me 1.1 mile an hour of that I have to read the wind within that threshold, or I'm going to be off the target or off the 10 ring, right? So I get 1 mile an hour on each side. So my brain, I like to read mirage. I can see the mirage and I'm there. And now my triggers are 1 ounce. Mm-hmm. Having said that, more than once I've applied pressure to the trigger, and then I see the mirage do something weird, and then I let off. Now, I feel like, and I literally applied pressure. I think about what I'm saying, and even as I'm saying it, I know it sounds crazy. For me to apply pressure to a 1 ounce trigger and halfway there be able to back off, again, as I say it sounds impossible, but I've done it multiple times because I know exactly how much movement it's going to take. And I'm, just like you say, apply pressure. The 1 ounce trigger is not so you can slap it and be okay with it. I'm very mindful and very disciplined on my trigger squeeze. And just like you said, I start adding pressure, and it goes off, right? It's only 1 ounce. Whenever I'm very stressed out, let's say you're at a very important match and you got 18 shots on, and you're clean, and then the wind switches, and then it's doing all kinds of crazy things, and you're like, okay, I think my condition's back, and you're halfway there, and you're like, it's holding, and that trigger feels like a 10-pound trigger because I'm so stressed out that it feels like, and kind of like you're talking about, I go, come on, go, go. And I'm squeezing, and it finally goes off, right? But sometimes when you're so stressed out, that 1 ounce trigger feels like 10 pounds.
Like a brick.
It's crazy. Now, having said all that, I don't want to be surprised. I don't want to be squeezing and all of a sudden it goes off whenever I'm not ready, because I'm so focused on the wind that I don't want it to, when it does something weird, I don't want the trigger to, the rifle to go off, right?
So go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep going.
I said, and that's another reason I don't like really heavy triggers, because then I am surprised, because I'm just feel like, oftentimes, I don't know how light of triggers you run, but oftentimes when I go from my F-class rifles that I shoot a lot, and I go back to, I've been shooting quite a few factory rifles lately. I'm literally squeeze, and then I kind of back off and I check, make sure the safety's not on.
Make sure it's not safety.
And it's not on. And I'm like, I guess I got a lot more to go. So if you ever ask me to shoot your rifle or anybody's rifle, any rifle, before I even do a live fire, I will dry fire it a few times, because I don't want the trigger to surprise me. I want to get a feel for how much it takes to, because your brain, kind of like you're talking about, your brain somehow it lines everything up, and you're applying pressure just like you're talking about. I have found, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm not, I have noticed, at least in my own experience, that the brain sees the target, sees the wind, sees everything, and when you're applying pressure, it seems like the trigger always breaks at the correct moment. I don't know if the brain is going, everything lines up, let's go. And I feel like, because of my experience with the so-called 10-pound trigger, when it's not, I'm very stressed. I feel like the brain sends a signal of relaxation, that it just lets everything just go, and then trigger breaks, shot goes, everything's happy.
Right.
How many times have you sent a shot that you go, I don't know if that's going to be good, when boom, it's right in the center? Because I feel like your brain is so powerful, it just lines everything up. It knows what it's supposed to do. I don't know. At least that's so that. So no, I don't want to be surprised.
So now, what do you think that, okay, so let's go back to your scenario. So you're so focused on the Mirage, right? So do you bounce back and forth? Do you bounce and say, okay, Mirage, my condition is here. I heard you say that phrase. I'm looking for my condition.
Right.
And that assumes your condition for whatever wind hold that you have dialed.
Correct.
Right. So I see that condition. When you're about ready to press the trigger, do you bounce? Are you focused on watching that Mirage as you press the trigger? Or are you saying, okay, the Mirage, I see it, and then my focus shifts back to the target and pressing the trigger? Or are you constantly looking at the Mirage and pressing the trigger?
So that's a lot of the F-class shooters have a spotting scope to read Mirage, and they go, they kind of go off, look back at the spotting scope, then they get on the rifle scope. I don't like doing that, because number one, I know it can change from the minute they look at the spotting scope to the minute they look at the rifle scope. So I look through my scope. That's how I read my Mirage. I read the Mirage, and then I make a decision of where I need to hold. And so F-class targets have circles. They have lines. So I just use those lines on the circle, on the target itself.
So you're not dialing.
As a naming point. Yeah, I'm not dialing, or I'm not using the reticle, because number one, we use a second focal plane scopes. So I don't ever want to use the reticle, simply because you bump that power ring and you're done. Everything's different. So I use the lines on the target, because those are always calibrated, right? They're always exactly the same. So I read the Mirage, and what I tend to do is I tend to kind of get a estimation of where I need to hold. So I move the scope over there. Let's see, I always start from the center and count outwards. So I'll go to the center, and I go right 1, which is the first ring, right 2, right 3, right 3.5, whatever. Just use fractions from there. So let's just say I'm holding right 3, which is the third ring from the center. I go and I put my crosshair there, right 3. I'm looking at the Mirage. Is this good? This good? Yep. Okay. Look at the crosshair. Look at the target. Squeeze. Right.
Okay. All right.
And so I look at the Mirage. Then at that point, it's like anything else. Look at the crosshair. And I always use the center because I'm always holding off. I always use the center dot on the crosshair. As a matter of fact, I don't like reticles that are real busy because I am trying to read the Mirage through the scope. So when the reticle's got too much going on, it literally gets in the way of me seeing the Mirage because I'm trying to see the Mirage and then there's reticle in the way. I want a pretty clean reticle. So that's kind of, for F-class, that's how I do it. When I'm shooting first focal plane scopes, then I do hold off, and
with
same
like
thing,
a 5/10 or 6/10 hold or whatever.
Yeah, I do kind of the same. I look at the Mirage, I make my wind call, and then I forget the wind call, focus on the reticle, look at the target, squeeze.
Right, because if your brain is thinking about the wind call,
you can't do them all at once.
You can't. You have to make a choice to say, okay, it's like a step. It's like a Mirage looks good, reticle that looks good. Then my eyes focus on where I want the bullet to land on the target.
As you know, it's the shot's not over. You have to. Now the other thing is, a lot of people, they break the shot and the shot's over. It is not over. You have to follow through. And that, let's talk about that because that is super. Yeah. That's one thing that most of the people that I help, they struggle with follow through because the minute they break the shot, they feel like the job's done. And it's not. It's so, for example, if I'm shooting some kind of PRS style shooting, the last thing I look at when I shoot is the target. And I continue to look at that spot. Like let's just say I pick the center of the target, or let's just say there's a crater or anything on that target. Anything. I'll look at that. I squeeze off, and then I will stay just completely focused on that spot. Now, the rifle's gonna recoil, but imagine this is kind of how I imagine it. I shoot and imagine somebody's doing this, but I am just locked into that target, right? And the rifle recoils, and I'm just looking. Yeah, it's somewhere. The scope moved, right? But because I'm looking right at that target, it really doesn't matter where it moved, as long as it's not out of sight. I'm just locked in. Most of the time, I can see my own trace. Going to the target, and I'm looking. I see it hit or I see it miss. And then I'm like, got it, and then at that point I'm done. And I am very critical of my shooting. I watch, I film myself a lot. So I'm always watching how I shoot. Like I just, when I shoot the Blackjack Challenge, I just did one not long ago. And I'm literally watching the film, and I'm watching my trigger finger, and I'm watching, and you can see me kind of shoot, cycle the bolt, get on the rifle, get everything steady, and all of a sudden I squeeze the trigger, and it's like frozen in time. Like I literally just squeeze, and then for a microsecond it's just complete nothing. And then I cycle the bolt again, and I'm like, that's me seeing the shot. Once the shot lands, let's go, But it's now, as you know, this is not easy to do. It takes a lot of repetition, a lot of dry firing. And you talk about flinching. I used to flinch because I used to shoot. I grew up hunting, and I grew up not using hearing protection. I grew up just the worst of habits, right? And of course, shooting 30-06s and 270s, and I mean, no hearing protection. So massive flinch. So when I started doing competitive shooting, I realized how bad I really am at shooting, because we all think we're the greatest. I mean, that's how we're wired. That's why there's so many bar fights and things of that nature, right?
Or Instagram fights.
Whatever. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, we're always right.
Yeah.
So once I realized that, I'm like, I got to get rid of this flinch. My goodness, that was tough.
Yeah.
The way I got rid of it is, you talk about how your brain can only do one thing at a time, and what is it that you focus on? I literally would get on the rifle, close my eyes, and just break the trigger. Just break the trigger, close my eyes, don't focus on anything, just focus on breaking the trigger, break the trigger. Just get used to hearing and what it feels like to break the trigger without any without any tension, right? Just close the bolt, get completely still, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. There, it went off, got it. Do it again, do it again. Now, look through the scope, but don't look at anything. Like, don't look at the crosshair. Just get behind the rifle, look through the scope, but don't look at the cross. Because I found when I looked at the crosshair, all of a sudden, somehow it activated something that made me tense up. It made me
stress response.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden I start flinching and closing my eyes, blinking. So I'm like, okay. So I found that if I just look through the scope, both eyes open. That's the other thing. I grew up with one eye closed, kind of gotta close one eye. And like I said, first, both eyes closed, dry fire. Then get behind the rifle and just look through the scope, but don't aim, don't do it. Just look through the scope, both eyes open. And I found that I could keep both eyes open, no problem, as long as I didn't look at the crosshair. If I just looked through the scope and dry fire, it was no different than closing my eyes, right? And then I'm like, okay, now I got to look at the crosshair. And then I realized I could get one or two, and then I start blinking again. Then I go back to just looking through the scope, and I still blink. Then I go back to closing my eyes. And then I had to kind of work my way. Also, anytime I was in the pool or in water, I would splash in front of my eyes to keep from blinking.
Oh, okay.
Because all that water, you have that reaction. And I just splash water, and then at some point, but again, this was a long process. And now people see me on YouTube and go, man, this guy doesn't even close his eyes when he shoots, because I'm like just locked in, right? Now, that goes back to years and just hours and hours behind that rifle, right? But once you do it, it just looks so easy, right?
Right. Well, it's like once you see something and you recognize its importance and it's become now into your awareness, it's hard to not see it ever again, right? You're forever going to see it. And usually when I see shooters that blink, I'll just lay down next to them and I'll coach them through, and I'll just say, hey, listen, I just listen to what I'm telling you. Just follow these instructions. And I tell them, concentrate on where you want the bullet to hit the target. Talk yourself through the trigger press. Breathe in, breathe out, hit your natural respiratory pause, natural point of aim is where it needs to be. Just say press, 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 press. And as soon as they do that, I'll record them with my phone. Boom, that rifle goes bang, and their eyes stay open, and they're like, I saw it. And it's just like, yes, man, that's exactly what I'm trying to show you, right? And they're like, well, how did that happen that way? And I'm like, well, because we shifted your concentration from whatever scrambled eggs bullshit's going on in your brain right now. We directed the attention to something finite, right? So that way we're kind of tricking your subconscious mind, and we're getting it out of the equation. We're moving it out of the way. So that way we can see what's going on. And you can focus on something. And when you focus on something like the target or it just has to be one singular thing. And then once that happens, they see something. It's the same thing like trying to teach shooters how to see their own trace. I lay them down on the prone, say, build a really good solid prone position. We're going to select a target at like 400 or 500 yards away. And I want you to line up on the target. And right before you press the trigger, look up at 2 mils and press the trigger. They're like, okay. So just look up at 2 mils. Boom. You see, and you'll see their eyes. They'll just be like, whoa, I saw it. I'm like, yeah. So that's where that's where you want to be looking to catch the movement. And I go, what we're trying to do is teach your brain that this is important information. It's like somebody showing them trace behind a spotting scope for the first time. They've never seen it before. Well, you can look through the spotting scope. You and I could look through the spotting scope and trace would be just clear as day, right?
Right.
Sun's behind you. You can watch the bullet fly all the way to the target. For us, it's completely inconceivable that you can't see that. Right. But for somebody's brain who doesn't have the schema established, they haven't primed their brain, the photons of light that are coming from that image are entering the brain or entering the eyeball, but the brain's not saying that's important information. So once you tell them to blindly stare at the target and let the eye pick up movement, because that's what it's best at, right, then they're able to see that shimmer. And as soon as they see that shimmer, that's like, they'll usually look at you and go, I saw something. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Okay, now let's do it again, and let's do it again. And that's how you prime your brain to see what you're telling it, you're teaching it what's important information. Like, well, and like you're saying,
that's the thing about my blackjack videos. And you know, I position the spotting scope right behind the shooter, and of course you see the trace. And the majority of the comments, like, it's amazing that you can see. They don't call it trace. They call it
vapor trail, or,
well, no, not even that. They oftentimes they go, I can see the bullet. And like, well, that's not really the bullet. It's just the aftermath, right? That's the vapor trail,
the wake,
the wake. Or they can say, but anyway, the point is they've never seen anything like it. Is what I'm talking about. Yeah, a lot of people know what it is, and the people that know what it is, they don't really comment. They go, oh, okay, well, but it's the people commenting. They go, I've never seen such a thing. Like, what is this? What am I looking at? And you can, because it's magnified and it's, you know, it's in perfect position. You can see it, you know, and then they go, that's crazy. Case in point, whenever we did at 1,000 yards, they go, we can't see the trace. And I'm like, no, because you're looking here and it's
way up there.
Now. Yeah. And that's the difference. Because they built it into their brain that, oh, the trace is here. Well, it's here for 500. For 1,000, depending on the cartridge, it's way up there.
Yeah. The other cool thing too with that you get shooters to understand, I have berms on my range that go, you know, every 100 yards out to 15, but then I have a bunch of steel scattered out in the sagebrush and the grass with no backdrops. And shooters always struggle with that because, you know, I'm trying to build self-sufficient shooters, because that's really the flair of the game these days. I don't usually have many F-class shooters come through. Most of the guys are PRS or NRL hunter type dudes, or just folks that are trying to get more proficient at shooting and improve their skills. Like teaching them, like they'll see a bullet fly by a target. Prime example is like, you know, a wind error and a target that has the nearest backdrop is like 80 to 100 meters behind the target. So they miss the target, but then they see it hit directly low underneath it.
Right.
And they're like, oh, you're low. Yeah. And I just let them do it, right? I want to let them make their own mistakes. So that way you got to let them make their own mistakes. And so they'll say, oh, you need to come up a 0.5 mil. And with ballistic predictions being so effing accurate for what they are today, the only time that you're going to have an issue with an elevation on a target is if you have really wild extreme spreads, right? If you got a really big extreme spread and the target's deep, or you got a bad range to the target, right? I know that if I validate and tune my trajectory with the 4DOF solver, if I have an elevation error, it is because I have a bad range on the target, period, end of story. Or I broke a shot really, really dirty on the vertical plane, right? So I got a lot of vertical wobble. So I listen to them. They're like, hey, you got to come up a 0.5 mil. And they'll come up a 0.5 mil, send the next shot. And it's still behind the target, but it's just up a little bit. And they're like, you got to come up. Believe the bullet, right? Believe the bullet. Let's come up another 0.5 mil. And so they're holding another mil. And then now the next shot goes and it lands behind the target. They can't see it.
That's
they're
the
like,
best one.
I can't see it. But they saw the dust go. And what's happening is, and then I explained to them like, hey, what's going on is you got a bad wind call and that berm is 180 to 100 yards behind the target. And so the wind is continuing to drift the bullet after it missed off the left edge, the upwind edge. And what you're seeing is it's landing vertically underneath the target because at that distance, the wind drifted it that much more. And they're like, Oh, I didn't think of that.
That's what I see. That's what happens a lot. Yeah.
You teach them to watch the trace. You're like, hey, if the target is, if you see the trace cut across the target and you missed on the upwind side. If you watch the trace and you don't see the trace cut across the target and you missed on the downwind side. And simple things like that to watch people, like once the trace cuts across it and did you see the trace cut across it? And you see it kind of like shimmer across the target. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you missed upwind. Oh, that's how you use trace. I'm like, yeah, that's how you use trace.
So that's one thing that most shooters are simply not willing to do is miss on purpose. Because, for example, they can literally train themselves to see what the miss looks like upwind and downwind. All they have to do is go, and when they practice, quit trying to hit the target every time. Purposely miss and get a mental image of what that upwind miss looks like, what a downwind miss looks like, and see how vertically where it's at in relation to the target. Like you gotta, you don't learn as much from hits as you do from misses.
Agreed.
So, knowing that, go miss on purpose and purposely take a look at how the bullet reacts, how the berm reacts, how the dust off the berm reacts, and get a mental image of all those scenarios so that when it happens to you in a stressful moment while you're actually shooting for score, you at least now know what it looks like when you hit left, right, up, down, whatever. You know,
yeah.
This happens a lot in the blackjack challenge, just like you described. They'll miss left, and like you said, the wind's coming from the left. They'll miss left. The berm's only like 20 yards behind it, but it's enough that they'll miss left. It tucks in behind the target.
Yeah,
they don't see it. All they see is the dust on the right, even though they miss left. They see the dust on the right, so they think they miss right. Now, it's a very specific way in which the berm reacts when you impact it versus when the dust is simply drifting away. All they're seeing is the dust drifting away, but because they haven't ingrained in their brain what it looks like to actually hit the berm when you miss, they're confusing the drifting dust with an impact. All they see is dust and they go, oh, that's where I hit. So they move farther left. And then they go more left and now they'll hit. And then now they see the impact and they go, oh, I missed left. I'm going to move back to where I was. Well, guess what? They tuck it in behind the target again, but now they see it over there on the right and they go back left again. And then they go, oh, I got screwed by the wind.
This is a tricky range to shoot on.
Exactly. Like, no, you were left the entire time. And they go, well, I was going right and left. Like, no, you were left the entire time.
The whole time.
Just your brain was playing tricks on you because the bullet was getting tucked behind the target.
Right.
And same thing with when we're shooting the 2-inch, right? It's when you miss, the splash on the berm is massively bigger than the target.
Yeah.
So it's like, where did you miss? It's hard. But again, if you're really trained and you have good follow through and you have a rifle that doesn't kick the snot out of you, you can see the trace and you can see it and then you can go, okay, that was left or that was right. Now, part of it is you have to trust all the other targets on your elevation, right? That's where you get your elevation right. By the time you get to the 2-inch, you should be...
Everything should be dialed.
Should be, elevation-wise, you should be 100% confident that you don't need to touch that. It's just left and right. And I don't know. It's... I think the KYL racks, or, we call it the Blackjack Challenge, but all it is a know your limits rack. It teaches you a very specific skill set, which is... You have to look at the target. You have to look at your impact position. You have to track it. You have to compensate or adjust your sights for that. Go to the next one. Not only are you trying to hit it, but you're also trying to verify the movement that you made on your previous target. Go to the next one, and it just... Now, another thing that happens often is people will shoot the 12-inch and they'll hit low. but they hit it. So they do nothing.
They do nothing.
And they go to the next one. They aim center. They hit it. They hit low again. But now it's closer to the edge because the target's smaller.
Right.
And they go to the next one. They'll clip it. And I'm like, all right, a miss is coming. Sure enough.
Yeah.
They go low.
Then
they react. Then they click up.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Oh, I got screwed by the wind." Yeah. I say in our skills progression clinic, I don't focus too much about in the intro class. I want them to have, the intro class, what I want people to be able to do is come away and have enough confidence in themselves and their equipment that they could do this on their own and have the ability to say, I know what the process is and I'm confident in that process. Like, I don't think that you can do that in 2 days. I think 3 days, it's probably right on the teetering edge of like comprehension. But I think that's why my intro class is 4 days, because I really want that to sink in and solidify, because the most important thing is when you leave, what do you do and how are you going to train when you're not under the tutelage of a coach, right? What are you going to do? Like, do you have enough knowledge and enough skill at this point to go do this on your own and then go, okay, I can see my mistakes. I might not know exactly what I'm doing wrong, but I at least identify these are the things that I need to pay attention to. But in the skills progression clinic, we focus a lot on what you just said. We do, I call them dirt drills, and I'll have shooters pair up and I take pieces of tape and I put pieces of tape on everybody's scope bell housing. And I say, okay, I have one student come up and I'm like, hey, dial my windage turret. Select a target range, and then I'll take my dope and dial it on the elevation turret. And then I say, hey, put some windage in my turret, no more than 1.5 mils, right? We're not trying to go, off the berm here, but no more than 1.5 mils, and I won't know where it is. And I want you to put tape on the turret, and then I'll go put the trigger cam up and I'll put it on the screen and I'll take the shot. And the goal is to be able to make a correction within 3 rounds. So I don't like having shooters shoot more than 3 shots. Once you start shooting more than 3 shots, you're just kind of like going through the motions, right? So I want you to be able to shoot, recover from recoil, observe the miss, pinpoint the miss, and then drag it onto the target, right? So the mantra in the skills progression clinic is, if it's not center, it's a miss. And that's exactly what you're talking about. If I see a correction, if I see something on the plate, correct for it, right?
You guys are F-class shooters.
What's that?
You guys are F-class shooters. If it's in the center, it's a miss.
It's not a center, it's a miss, man. If it's not in the center, it's a miss. Because I don't want people thinking that it's just good enough. Yeah. Because if you think that it's just good enough and you're flirting on, let's just say you're flirting on the downwind edge of the target, the shooter can't see it. They're getting hits, but then they go another target in the array deeper, and all of a sudden they're off the plate on the downwind side, and they're like, oh, what happened? I got screwed by the wind. It's like, nah, man, you were trending light on the wind the whole time. And you're watching it through the spotting scope, and you're also trying to teach them how to do that. And so once they do the dirt drills for a little bit, then I have a whole array of wide rectangle targets. They're small, right? They're only like a minute of angle high, but they're wide by like 3 to 4 minutes. And the goal for that is to be able to show them how the plate swings when it hits. Right. Say, okay, like this is what this looks like. And then I want you guys to put your bullets on the plate, and I want you to move them around on the plate and get them into the center, and use that same kind of 3-shot drill, to do that. And usually people, once they start doing it from the prone at first, like, okay, I'm getting it. We're priming the brain. We're putting the schema in the brain to say, this is what's important to see. And then we go put it into alternate or adaptive shooting positions where it's more difficult to recover from recoil in a reason. If you're not seeing something, it's most likely because you're taking too long to recover from recoil. I got a day of coaching from a dude up here in the Northwest. His name's Nick Godarzi. And, he's just a force to be reckoned with up here in the Pacific Northwest. He shoots really, really consistently, and he's like Iceman. And the way that he moves, people look at it all the time. They're like, I don't know how he finishes stages, because he just doesn't look like he's moving very fast, but he's making speed without haste. He's just very efficient. And it was a super simple training day. He was like, here's the post. He's got one telephone pole strapped to a stanchion, a vertical stanchion, and he's got like pegs coming out of it. And he's got a 250-yard target with a little half MOA little steel dot on top of a flapper. And he's just like, just start shooting at it. Tell me where every bullet goes. I'm like, all right, that 250 yards. And he's just standing behind you with a set of binos, and he's confirming what you're telling him. And in his mind, and he's like, if I can see where every single one of my bullets go at 250 yards, then I can certainly see him deeper, right? So he's training that flinch and that startle response. That's what he's doing. He's like, hey, you need to be able to recover from recoil and get all of that work done in the time of flight that it takes at 250 yards, which from our rifles is 0.25
250
seconds.
is way harder than 500. People don't realize.
Hell yeah, it is. Yeah, because absolutely.
Like that. The bullet gets like that.
Yep.
Like as you say, you don't have that recovery time.
So if
it's not as long as shooting farther out.
Yeah, and if you know, like a lot of times people think that the recoil control needs to be such that the reticle returns exactly to the target. I don't want that. Like you said, it's all that shit is in the way. I want the reticle to move slightly away and recoil in a consistent manner, so that way I have clear view of what's going on in my.
And you know where to look.
Yes, you know where to look. So it's consistent.
Again, you know, like I said, the way I do it, I focus on the target, I break the shot, and the scope will move, and I've never lost contact. It's like a staring contest with the target.
Yep, right? Exactly, because you know where it's going to be.
Yeah, that's it's fun watching all these people come through here and do the blackjack challenge, because I get to see so much, and again, because I'm filming them, I get to see all the things, and I can link a lot of how they shot the rifle to their misses. You know? Sure.
Okay. Talk to me about that.
And I do it after the fact, because I'm usually behind them, so I don't get to see them. We have a camera on the right, so it's when I'm editing that I actually get to see the full picture, right? And I can see them. For example, we had one of the ones that I remember. He had, it's pretty sandy where we shoot, and he had spike feet on his bipod, right? Okay. Well, that works great, but not in sand. They just kept digging in, and
they did deeper and
he kept rocking it. Well, he kept shooting, and he kept going lower. Okay, on the target. And I could see him like pounding the bag. What was happening is that bipod was sinking, and he's trying to get his bag
lower. He's trying to get the buttstock up compensate. So he can get his model, yeah.
And at some point, of course, he starts missing. He can't. But he was, what I'm getting at, a sign of somebody. But anyway, to finish that conversation, he was really struggling with the rear bag, which all his misses were vertical, right? Because he was dealing with the vertical component, and that was what was in his head. And of course, at some point, the wind, he just literally forgot to look at the wind, because he's so busy with everything else that the wind was not even there as far as he was concerned. Everything else was much larger of a problem than reading the wind, and of course, didn't do well. I was teaching a friend of mine. He wanted to shoot F-class, or he wanted to shoot my rifle. I said, come on now. I'm going to be out practicing. I'm going to be fire forming some brass. Why don't you come out and shoot my rifle? So he came out, and I let him shoot it. Again, it's an F-class rifle with the front rest, rear bag, the whole setup. And, I shot it, got it on target. Then I had him shoot. And he said the biggest thing was, he was so stressed out. I mean, 3 or 4 shots, maybe 5, and he was just exhausted. He's like, I'm so tired. I'm like, why are you tired? Yeah. He says, because it is extremely stressful, because it looks very solid, but it's not. Like, if I move, the rifle moves. And because he's at 40 magnification, and he's trying to aim at a, half of my target. Yeah. Well, actually smaller. He's aiming at the line on the target, which is literally a sliver, right? Any slight movement, I mean, you can see your heartbeats on the target. Yep. Right. Yep. And he said that was just completely screwing him up mentally, because he goes, this is supposed to be rock solid. It's not supposed to move, yet it is moving.
Right.
And he was just trying to hold that rifle super still.
He's a hard holder. He's trying to be a hard holder.
Yeah, and he's just hanging onto that thing. And well, guess what? The harder he held it, the worse it got.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because he's pressing it against his chest. And of course, now the heartbeat is more pronounced.
It's human nature, right? It's human nature. It's like, hey, if I can't stop this thing from moving, I need to hold on to it harder.
Exactly. And he was extremely stressed out by this entire situation. And then he starts shooting, and he starts missing the target left and high. Not. He was just high and left. He was hitting that corner on a circle, kind of top left corner, and he just kept shooting, and he just kept going left, and then at some point he starts going right the other way.
Okay.
And he shot like 6 or 8 shots, and he's like, I'm so tired. So then I start going, okay, let me tell you what you're doing. Oh, he got to the point where he said he couldn't see. He was really having trouble acquiring a good sight picture to the scope. And he goes, I'm just not used to the scope. And I said, of course I let him shoot. Afterwards I go, okay, I'm going to walk you through this whole thing. And that video is over on my forum. I put it for everybody else to see, because I said, okay, and I kind of broke down everything he was doing. I said, okay, number one, you're not lined up behind the rifle. You are like 45 degrees to the rifle. I said, that's why every time you shoot, the rifle kicks. You have to bring the rifle, because you're creating a pivot point right at your shoulder. Yeah, I know this thing looks like it shouldn't move, but it does, and it will. So it's every time you shoot, it kicks over that way, creates a pivot point right at your shoulder, and it kicks out that way. That's why you're having to bring it back. So get behind the rifle more. Like, fundamentals matter in an F-class rifle.
For sure.
Okay. It is not clamped on like people think. Number 2, I said it has a bump stop. The rest has a bump stop. I said, every time it recoils, you're supposed to push it back. I said, you haven't been. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. When you do, because your body's not moving, that's when you can see the sight picture, no problem. But when it recoils and you just leave it there, all of a sudden you're too close to the scope. You're about an inch closer. Then you shoot it from there again, and now you're about 2 inches closer. That's why you're having issues with sight picture.
He's probably got shadow going on.
Exactly. He had a lot of shadow, and I said, see, you got to push it back I said, you got to do the same thing. You got to have the same starting point every time. Okay. I said, now look at this target. Where are the shots? He goes, they're on the left. I said, yeah, they're on the left. But what else? And he goes, some are on the right. I said, yeah, okay, fine. Some are left, some are right. What else? He could not pick out the fact that he was high.
Oh, okay.
I said, you're also high. And he goes, oh, he was so focused on left and right that the up and down just never, because he thinks, well, the up and down is I don't know what he was thinking. And I said, look, just that's the easy one. Just click the scope down, So we clicked the scope down, and I said, what was the wind doing? And he goes, oh, I don't know. I forgot to look at the wind. Like, I was struggling so much with the scope and trying to steady the rifle that I never once looked at the wind. That's the reason they were going left. They were going right. He was just giving us what we call a weather report. He was holding the same spot. The shots were going left. Shots were going right. He wasn't bothering looking. He was just seeing where the shots were hitting, and he may have been compensating, but never once did he look at the wind, right? Didn't look at the mirage, didn't look at anything. It's just information overload, right?
Yeah, bandwidth. It's how much bandwidth do you have, right? So, new shooters, that's why, like, 2-day, like when people go to a 2-day class and you hear by the end of the afternoon of day 1, you're going to be hitting 1,000 yards from a tripod in a standing position, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, that's not really... Yeah, that's like a carnival ride, right? Yeah. You're going to go up. You're going to say, we're going to put the rifle here. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And now I want you to press the trigger, and you're going to get somebody to hit the target. But you're not actually like teaching them what goes into making that happen, and then to be able to replicate that process, because you can't do it on your own. It's like listening to somebody's win call at a PRS match. You're like, Erik and I are shooting together, and Erik's like, man, I held 8/10 on that. That's fucking money. I think that's what you should do. And I'm like, okay. And so I go up and I hold 8/10, and the wind changes, the condition changes, and 8/10 doesn't work, and the whole thing melts down. And I only get like
8/10 the whole time. Yeah.
Two hits, right? And I'm just like, well, and then Erik's off to another stage, and I don't have Erik anymore to make a wing call. So now I don't have anything to go off of. I don't know how he got that. I don't know why it didn't work, and I'm still screwed. So well, you got to make your own wing calls.
Yeah, and the real shooters, they talk in miles per hour, right?
Yeah, absolutely, right. That's how we talk in mile per hour, even in PRS. It's like, hey, I held for a 5, because I could have a dude shooting a 25 Creedmoor, I could have a dude shooting a Dasher, I could have a dude shooting a 6.5. Who knows, right? So, the bandwidth aspect I think is really important for people to understand, because the training that you just discussed, like he's struggling with the rifle. And so if you're struggling with the system, right, in the circle of components, if you're not, rifle and optic combination is not working for you, and you're having to fight with that system every single shot, adjust the position every single shot, that's where the dry fire practice comes into play. And that's where people don't want to do it. They're just like, no, this is boring. This doesn't work for me. And that's the surface level stuff. But the dudes that are super into it, and the dudes that know and understand, like I'm coaching a couple of guys in a mentorship program, and 2 of them are golfers. And those guys that are golfers, and they're really good golfers, they get it. They understand. I'm like, this is the monotony and the grind.
Like going to the driving range, going to the putting green.
I suck. I'm terrible at golf. Like, I'm fucking terrible. Because when I swing a club, I'm like, man, there is a lot in this, right? There is a lot to address. There's a lot to address. There's a lot of touch points to address. Yeah.
Instead of swinging the club.
I've never actually been coached, right, to golf. I've just been the guy. Like, let's go swing.
The mistake people make is they try to hit the ball rather than it's a golf swing, not a ball hit, right? They don't call it a ball hit. It's called the golf swing. So if your golf swing is consistent, the ball just gets in the way. Just move to where the ball gets in the way. You just swing the club, and that's it. And I mean, I've seen it a million times because I golf, and I have took lessons because I'm smart, and I know that essentially, if somebody's gonna get into this long range deal, take a class.
Yeah,
from somebody
really
who knows, kind of like Mr. Wojcik here. Take a class from somebody who's been there, done that, and it's going to shorten the learning curve. So I took lessons, and again, it's essentially, I've seen it time and time again because I have took lessons and I have filmed myself a million times. And I have worked through my golf swing, and I see kind of the mistakes that I make, because feel versus real are totally different. And but I see it in other golfers, right? They'll do a practice swing, just the most perfect swing, into out, nice, plain, shallow club, everything. They step in front of the ball, and I mean, it's like they're trying to hit it with a sledgehammer. They instead of doing this nice smooth swing, they go this way, like. Because they're applying more speed, everything, and they just throw, and they just and now they're trying to hit the ball. They're not swinging the club, right? And
that's totally me. That's absolutely me.
And but anyway, and that happens in everything, right? The minute, kind of like we were talking about earlier, you can dry fire. The minute you give them a live round and a target, all of a sudden all the mistakes come back. If you haven't done it,
the mental aspect. Yeah. Like the ball and dummy drill with pistols, like that was fantastic. I mean, that's exactly what it's there to do. But I mean, shit, I think the first time I saw a ball and dummy drill with a pistol, I was just 20 years old in the Marine Corps learning how to shoot a pistol and the ball and dummy drill. And it's just like, well, yeah, you don't know whether you're going to get a click or a bang, and it's there to try to solve that flinch problem.
Right.
We knew what we were trying to accomplish, but we didn't understand, like, that we didn't have the the knowledge of like what's actually going on neurobiologically and physiologically with that entire process and what you're trying to accomplish. You're getting it done, but now we have so much more knowledge and understanding. And I think that when you teach somebody not only the drill itself, but then the why behind the drill, it just really helps things click for them, because they're just like, I'm not just going to go through this motion where I don't know what I'm trying to achieve or accomplish. And then you give them the verbiage, you give them the vernacular. And I like to try to explain things to people so that way they have enough vocabulary after they have a chance to practically apply what we just taught, that they have the ability to communicate what they experienced with a deep enough vocabulary that I can come help them. All right. So it's hard to help somebody that has a difficult time communicating. Like you and I as coaches, you can surmise quite a bit from just watching a shooter and how they address the rifle and how they go through and hand flexion and all those things. But it's like, I'm not inside your head. Yeah. I don't know exactly what you're thinking about the moment that you're doing this. So, it's really cool to talk to a guy in F class that's like, hey man, fundamentals matter
big time.
You can't, like, this isn't, so talk to me about the difference between F class and bench rest when it comes to marksmanship fundamentals.
There's not much different. They call it, a lot of times they call F class belly bench rest because they're very similar. Speedy, when I went out to a bench rest match, he goes, I'm going to watch your bench etiquette. They call it bench etiquette. I want to see how you handle the rifle. And it's the same thing.
Got it.
Line up behind the rifle, follow through, keep a cheek weld at all times. Follow through, squeeze the trigger. Don't rock the gun. Like, don't get so fast that you're slow, Yep.
And
everything is extremely similar. And it's just, that's why they call them fundamentals, because they transfer from one to the next, to the next, to the next.
To the next, to the
next. And so, multiple F-class bench rest shooters have seen me shoot and go, oh, you know how to shoot. And it's not like you're putting small groups on target. No, it means like you actually know how to shoot, meaning you keep a cheek weld, you follow through, you cycle the bolt efficiently. It's different than fast, because fast can be very slow.
Oh man.
Oh
yeah. We put a lot of training scars. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. We put a lot of training scars into students about teaching them, myself included, way back in the day, about running the bolt. Like, this is sniper stuff, right? Sniper shit. Rapid bolt manipulation. Well, that's assuming that you have somebody behind you with a spotting scope saying, hey, your bullets are here. You need to move them here. But if you don't have anybody to do that, and you're too busy running the bolt like a madman, when we should be observing what's going on downrange, then you have no chance. You're not going to see it unless it's a super deep target and, you can get away with it.
Yeah. And, again, efficiency of motion, right? Where's all your stuff situated? Is your ammo here? I mean, I've seen shooters where they're right-handed, they're laying prone, shooting F-class. They shoot, they open the bolt, they're on their right elbow. Then they shift to the left one to get ammo from the left side. They feed it on the left. They have a dual action, dual port, yeah. And then they shift back over to close the bolt again. And they're just literally doing this all day. And I'm like, I could never.
You're wrecking your position.
Efficiency of motion is super important in anything, right? Anything you do. You want to play guitar, anything, right? Anything. But it's. I mean, you would do great in anything. F-class, bench rest. Yeah, you probably wouldn't score so high at the beginning just because of the game. You got to learn the game. But as far as, you don't have to learn how to shoot. You already know how to shoot. You just have to learn the game, right?
Yeah.
And that's, so without picking on my buddy F-class John, but picking on F-class John, he came over one time and we were out here at my place practicing. And I'm seeing him shoot, and here's the trigger. And he's going, I'm going to do it this way so you can see. And he's going like this. And I am like, what? I'm gonna PG-13 this thing. I said, what the heck are you doing? That's not what I said. I said, what the heck are you doing? And he goes, what? I said, why are you slapping the trigger? And he goes, that's how I shoot. I'm like, well, you shouldn't. He goes, well, that's how I shoot. I'm like, well, but you shouldn't. You know, it's like it's like if I'm driving, just because I can drive on my feet doesn't mean I should. To quote Chris Rock, you know. I said, but you shouldn't do that. And he goes, well, and then he goes, well, so-and-so does it and he's really good. And so-and-so does it and he's really good. And so I said, okay, so-and-so does it because have you ever seen his hand? They're shaking. Like they have to. They have no, if they try to hang on to the rifle, they would influence it.
Right. Okay.
It's because this is better than this. It's not because this is better than this. Okay.
Agreed.
I said, so stop doing that. And I said, why are you free recalling? Well, because so-and-so, I'm like, listen, he was just giving me all the wrong answers. Because if he had told me, why are you free recalling? Oh, because in my testing, it's better than hard holding. Then I would have been okay with it. Except he's like, well, so-and-so does. No, that's not a good enough answer. So I had him shoot my rifle. I said, just put your face on the rifle, hang on to it, put it against your shoulder. Give me a good squeeze, trigger squeeze. And of course, he's turning it real tight.
Tighten up.
The reason we had to do it on my rifle, because his rifle doesn't even have a cheek rest. It's literally meant so that you can't put your face on it.
Okay.
And I said, now go ahead and free recoil my rifle. And he did. And of course, the groups opened up. I said, now go back to hard holding it. Not hard holding, but, hang on to it.
Yep. Connection.
Back to here. I said, now do that on your rifle as much as you can. And of course, everything got better. He went and changed his stocks to like he could hold it differently. Not long after that, he goes and wins a national championship. And I'm like,
right.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
Now, is it better? I'm not sure it's better, but it is easier to be consistent for longer.
Agreed.
You could possibly make an argument for both, but I 100% believe that you can be consistent longer whenever you develop a rhythm and a system in which you grab on the rifle, you kind of lay there, because at least in my opinion or in my experience, whenever I lay there behind the rifle and something doesn't feel right, I have to fix it, right? And I'm like, there it is. When you're just free recoiling, you're not touching the rifle. And I know you go, well, there's no influence. Yeah. But if something's wrong with your setup, you're not going to feel it. And it's just going to be wrong. And it's just going to be wrong. But anyway, so old John, he likes to tell the story. So that's why I don't mind telling it, because I was like, what in the F are you doing? Like, why are you slapping the trigger? And the worst response ever. That's how I shoot. No.
Right. That's just how I do it.
Yeah.
Well, you had a student, you had a guy from the Blackjack Challenge on, it was a while ago, but he had his finger, like he was getting ready to shoot. He had his finger on the side of the trigger guard, and he was just like, Yep. He was hitting shit. And I think some of the comments, people were, because I remember I said something, and people in the comments were like, yeah, dude, he shoots pretty good at PRS. And I'm like, well, he'd probably shoot way better, right? If he would just marry the finger to the trigger. And so Ted Courageous was telling me, we were talking at the range, and he was like 0.003 of an inch at the buttstock equals approximately 1/2 of an inch of deflection at 100 yards.
Well, here's how I do the math for people. It's real easy in F-class, because typically the separation between the rear bag and the front bag is about 1 yard.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you think of the pivot point, so if it moves 1/1000 of an inch at 1,000 yards, it's 1 inch.
There you go. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
1,000 times 1,000 is 1 inch. Right. So 1/1000 of an inch of movement is 1 inch at 1,000 yards.
Right.
So 3,000. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing. That just shows you how much everything matters.
Well, and it just shows you, it's just like, well, be consistent, be as consistent as you possibly can. Right. And so free recoil on a rifle and slapping a trigger or tapping a trigger is not the answer. It's the same thing. Like, so you asked a while back, like, what's my trigger weight? I run a trigger that's like 16 ounces, rated a pound. And I shoot a 2-stage trigger, and that's just for me. So that way I can marry my finger to the trigger on a PRS gun, moving fast. And, I want to make sure that I have some buffer in there for me, right? I don't want to do anything unsafe. And I feel like I can manage a 16-ounce trigger fairly well. I want to be able to press the trigger, take the first stage out, find the wall of the trigger. My shot sequence is, once I find the wall of the trigger, I take a breath in, take a breath out, settle the sights. Then I go, there it is, press. And that's my final moments of my shot sequence. So a 16-ounce trigger for me, I don't think I'm losing anything, basically.
I do that in my PRS rifles. My PRS, they're not 1 ounce, right? They're about a pound, which is similar to, but of course they're single stage, because that's what I shoot in F-class. So it's all familiar to me. And back to every rifle should have its intended purpose. I am not going to have a 1 ounce trigger on a PRS rifle, and I am not going to have a 16-ounce trigger on an F-class rifle. Again, they just don't go hand in hand. Now, can you? Of course, just like you can have a 20-pound trigger on a PRS rifle. There's nothing against it, other than it's not very practical.
Yeah, and it's just going to take you a lot longer.
Now, in F-class, when you're trying to hold literally eighth MOA holds, and we kind of discussed that 1,000th movement equals 1 inch. Well, if you have a 1 pound trigger, you can literally,
move that gun.
While you apply that pressure, you can move it 1,000th of an inch, the rifle, which means you're going to move. So that's why a lighter trigger fits F-class better, right?
Sure.
I'm not saying it's necessary, but it has to do with my shooting style, all of the above, right? The system.
Yeah. Agreed, man. So, the fantastic conversation on fundamentals, dude, like, that's, marksmanship is still a thing, right? It still has to happen. Marksmanship is still a thing. It's not like, and I think that's where a lot of people have misconceptions about PRS too. Is that, now granted, there's some things that are like a little out of control when it comes to certain things, but it's getting tougher, man. It's getting hard. It's like, the last PRS match that I shot, a pro match, second to last stage of the day was 3 TYL racks or 4 TYL racks. One at 400 on the right side of the range, one at 600 on the left side of the range, one at 800, kind of like on the favor right side of the range, and then one at a grand straight down the gut. And all 4 target arrays have a relatively different wind call, and all 4 target arrays had a 1 MOA, or I'm sorry, a 2, a 1, and a half MOA target. And I ended up cleaning that stage, and I was just like, it's like, hey, I'm going to make my wind call, and I'm going to do this. And once they were running, I just ran it through, and every single bullet hit the target. And it was one of those things where I do believe that was like one of those stages where it's like, hey, if luck's on your side that day and you're going to be able to put together a good day, it's there. Because I mean, a half MOA target at 800 yards is not very big, right? It's not very big at all. That's tiny. But that's the level of skill. Yeah, that's at any distance. A 400-yard half MOA target's freaking tiny.
Yeah, so, I mean, the 2-inch target at 500 yards, it's slightly, it's about 0.4 MOA, but it's tiny.
It's tiny, man. It's like, hey, so I've got varying conditions. I got 1 minute and 45 seconds to get this work done. I don't have a whole lot of time, right? So it's like, you need to commit to your wind call, watch where the bullet lands on the first target, and then run it. Right. And just run and move it around as you can see it. And sometimes those KOL racks, they don't spin. They just go backwards. Right. So it's really hard to see where the bullet lands on the plate, especially when, for you, it's the second to last stage of the day, and everybody's beat the shit out of those targets for the entire day. And it's really even hard to see the edges of them. So it's just like, I think that's where the center of the target is. We're just going to go ahead and send it and see what happens. And that's like the level of skill that's out there, and dudes are cleaning shit like that. And it's just going to keep getting higher and higher and higher with the skill level, because the guns are there. The guns are there. The technology is there. The reloading is there. And it's like, okay, well, how are we going to continue to separate the wheat from the chaff there? If it's just a hit versus hits and time, something's eventually going to have to give with that scoring system, in the sense of, like, that's just my opinion. I think something's eventually got to give with that, because once you start seeing like 1 through 10 being only separated by like 5 shots, 5 hits on target, sometimes less, it's going to keep getting tighter and tighter as the skills continue to grow.
Yeah. I've discussed this. The problem is, if you, for example, it's like, well, let's make the target smaller. Yeah, right. But what about the guys at the bottom?
Right, they're not going to hit anything.
Exactly. So you gotta be careful with the overcorrection, because if you only look at the top 10 guys,
right?
Yeah, it's like, oh well, we need smaller targets, so we need faster times. You also got to look at the guys at the bottom. How far away are those guys from not from the top guy, there. But not from the top guy necessarily, but from the course, right? Like a par 72 in golf, right? Like whatever. Well, let's say they had 86 targets or possible, or 150, whatever, Mm-hmm. How far off of that maximum or that possible were they? Because if they're drastically, that means for them, the targets were too small, right? So now you gotta figure out,
Yeah, who are you making the match for? Right. Are you making the match for the top 10%, or are you making the match for, that 90% that is going to come back, right? And then the bottom, say 25% that have like a 10% hit ratio.
That's what I was telling Ken Wheeler. I said, well, what about a handicap system? Like golf, like, back to golf, right? Because how are those guys, because there's so many guys that go into the PRS finale with 300s, right? There's a handful that, those guys are going to get a 300, right? Mm-hmm. Like the guys that come in with, and I don't know, I don't look at the scores, but they come in with less than 300. How are they going to compete? And maybe not the finale, maybe that's not a good example, but maybe kind of like the monthly matches. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I'm just going like, how do you separate the top guys, but at the same time not discourage the guys at the bottom?
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
That's the dilemma.
Yeah. I mean, you go to a tough match and, you get skull drug, and you're just like, man, if this is what it's going to be every time, you're just like, well, I just pitched, I pitched $400 into the dirt this past 2 days. Right. I literally took $400 and put it in the berm with regard to ammo. So that's more
tough. Than that, because they start, that's where it starts. And then they go, well, I spent $6,000 on a rifle just so I can send all these bullets into the berm. That's not a very efficient way to spend $6,000, right?
No,
it's just
not at all.
It's just a bullet delivery system into the berm, which is not a good thing.
No, it's not, and they're not getting anything from it. They're not.
That's the problem, because there's no satisfaction. Mm-hmm. I mean, that drive home, I've had it. I'm sure you've had it. Where you're driving home, going, God, what do I need to do?
Yep.
I sucked. And if anyway, but obviously PRS is doing really well. Something's working.
Yep.
So
it's growing like crazy. It's growing like
but it's
weeds.
And I think I don't know. I think we back to we always think we're right discussion we had earlier. Mm-hmm. The real stubborn guys like you and I are just gonna figure out a way to get better, and then just get back out there and just keep getting their asses handed to them until they one day we're handing asses, and then it's like, all right, it's this is not so bad. And then even if we're not winning, just having a chance at winning, right? And But I don't know, man. It's tough. It's a tough conversation for a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people get discouraged and just quit because they go, I'm never going to be as good as that guy. I'm never going to be as good as whoever.
You know, Francis was talking, I was asking him about club matches and stuff. I'm like, yeah, do you use club matches to go, practice? And he's just like, nah, I don't do that because, and I think that this is healthy arrogance. I mean, there's definitely arrogance that's toxic and unhealthy, but he's like, look, man, I don't want to go there. And like, there's dudes that they're going there to get their first win. They're going there to get their first win, and I don't want to steal that from them because I am, I'm a professional shooter and I do this all the time, and those matches would be easier. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great point. I get that.
It's a double-edged sword.
Agreed.
You can go and you can really stomp on the kind of the newer shooters, the guys with less experience, or you can say, you know what, I'm just going to get some trigger time. And you go over there and then they beat you. And then they go, oh, I beat Francis Colon. I beat the, the professional shooter. And then now they kind of hang their hat on that. And, and now they're going, and now, it's just a loose situation for someone like Francis, and I get it. I mean, I do it too. I typically don't go to club matches simply because of that. I mean, I have a 1,000-yard range, so if I want to practice, I practice here. But typically, that's I don't attend club matches because you can't. I'm speaking for myself. I cannot go to a club match and try to have fun or try to test anything because to whoever beats me, it was a world championship. Oh, I beat Erik.
This is a great conversation, and this is part of one of the things that I wanted to get with you and talk about is that aspect of competition. And so there was a point in time early in my career that it was I was a shooter that was consistent enough and I had solid enough fundamentals that I could go to an event and win. Now it's not that way. You actually have to put the work in, and you got to train, and you have to be consistent. Now, also, there's the aspect of maybe not imposter syndrome, but a self-image aspect, just very similar to what you're talking about. My weakness is not understanding the game. That is my weakness. Like, I think I'm a fairly fundamentally sound shooter. I know how to make win calls. I know how to do all of those things. But my weakness is the game. And my weakness was also a self-image aspect of being like, hey, I'm a trainer in this space. And if I go to an event and I get beat, well, why do people want to come train with a guy that gets beat at a PRS match? So that was difficult at first to get around. But do you deal with anything like that, or have you dealt with anything like that mentally in the past? And how do you mentally prepare for a big match or a big competition as a world champion?
It's you have to understand that losing is a majority of what we do. That's just not everybody can win, right? There's only one winner.
Yep.
So you have to understand that losing is the majority of the time, right? But it's not, at least the way I cope with it, or I have the way I approach it. I don't grade myself on the score. I grade myself on my performance. I come up with a plan, and before every match, I go, okay, the wind's doing this, is doing that, based on the wind cycles and all that. I'm going to pick a condition, and once I start, I don't think it's changing enough. I'm just going to write it out, in and out, whatever. And then I'll go and then I'll shoot. And this happened to me in Phoenix, and I was halfway there and I was clean. And my pit service, the guy's pulling my pit, my targets weren't so fast, and the guys next to me, they were super fast. So all of a sudden I start feeling like I'm falling behind, and I started getting anxious because I'm waiting. I shoot, my target goes down and theirs goes down and theirs come up and they shoot again and they go back down again and now mine's just now coming up and I finally, the wind started chinging like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with it. So I stopped, waited, jumped back in, lost a point. Then I finished clean. I was slightly, I didn't give myself such a high score there on my performance because number one, I didn't follow my plan. Hindsight, if I had followed my plan, I wish I had a perfect score. However, I let the outside things influence my decision making. A decision had already been made, and I let the fact that my target was slower than the neighboring targets influence my decision and actually change my game plan to the point that it cost me one point. Now, there's no guarantee that I wouldn't have lost the exact same point if I would have stuck with my plan. However, at least I would have stuck with my plan. Mm-hmm. Right? So in the same scenario score-wise, 1 point down, one, I followed my plan. One, I let something else influence my decisions. I would take the one where I dropped the point and follow my plan, right?
Fair enough.
So, having said that, sometimes following my plan was not the right decision. But I followed the plan, I executed everything as I said, and I gave myself a high score. So when I'm done with a match, it's like, okay, how did I do following my system? Like, okay, well, I scored a 98% or 95% or whatever. Let's just say 98%. I gave myself a score of 98%. I'm happy. I'm real happy with my performance. I did really good. Oh, how did I do in the score? Oh, I finished 20th. Okay, well, too bad. At least I performed really well. Now, the opposite has also happened where I gave myself like a 92% on my performance. Well, how did I do? Oh, I finished third. Well, I'm more disappointed about the 92% than the third because now I go, what if I would have followed it to 98 or 99%? Would I have won? Mm-hmm. Whereas the flip side, well, I got 20th and I performed at 98% of my expectancy, my self-imposed expected plan. Well, then it wasn't meant to be, right? Whereas the other way, all of a sudden there's going, I wonder if I had actually guessing. I wonder if I could have, did I? And so one's going like, so on one side I'm going, I performed at 98% and I got 20th place. I was never going to win this match. Didn't matter. Even if I performed at 100%, there was no way I was going to make up those 20 places. Whereas the other way, I got third place, but I performed at 92%. At that point, I start feeling like I cost myself that match. That match was for me to lose and I lost it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's me looking at performance versus score. And I don't think they're correlated.
It's a good perspective.
So that's how I do it. I go to the match, I have a system, I follow it, and whether I won or lost is secondary. Because it doesn't matter. There's not a single person that you can say that guy's going to win every time, or that woman, or that doesn't happen. So at least I just have a system that I grade myself on, and if I scored high enough on that, I'm happy. I shake the winner's hand. I congratulate them on their success, and then I go home and I'm perfectly fine.
Right on. Yeah, I think that the mental aspect of that from a competitive standpoint is that's a great point. That's a great point of view. Identifying did I perform up to my standard, and if not, where was that at? I like that. It's definitely gotten easier. It's like getting over a hump for myself. I'm speaking for myself. It's definitely gotten easier. And it's focusing on the process. And we just knocked out a 40-day challenge in our community, where it was 40 days. You had to do something every day that focused on the mind, the body, and the rifle. Right. And so I gave dry fire and daily dry fire, weekly live fire. We had some coaches come in and provide some some PT stuff, for some physical training stuff, just to give people ideas. And some people aren't physically active. But I do think that it's a pretty big component of, especially like PRS, to be able to get in and out of positions quickly and have the ability to be flexible and move. And then the mind aspect is like, the mind is something that I don't think a lot of people address consistently enough. And I think it's very important to do that and to have something, developing your mind in some way, form or another, learning something, contemplating something, trying to problem solve something. I think those are really important aspects. And so people had a tremendous success, and a lot of people commented, they're just like, man, I went to a performance, and even with 30 days of dry fire, 30 days of consistency, my confidence went through the roof, and I felt like this wasn't as much of an effort, right? It wasn't as much of an effort. And that's what consistent training shows, that if it wasn't much of an effort. So, really, really happy with the way that challenge went down. And we had a tremendous amount of participation in the community, which was awesome to see. So I'm like for me personally, I think I'm going to chase after PRS this year, and into next year, I would like to chase a championship. I've never actually focused and said, I'm going to go do this. I've never actually had a competitive shooting goal. Just, trying to build businesses and using competition as a way to just validate training skills and to say, this is where I'm at. But I would really like to, I feel like I'm at that point in time in my career where I can go do that.
Yeah. You have to be chasing that goal. Otherwise, you're never going to get there. You're not going to accidentally become a national champion.
No, it doesn't happen. Hell no.
You know what I'm saying? And
of course.
I've said that many times before. They go, what are your chances of winning the national champion? Zero. I'm not trying to win it. I'm not, And then, of course, at some point I go, okay, now I'm going to try to win it, And, and I got there. And I got there a couple of times. But, it's weird. If you're not chasing, if you're not purposely, mentally preparing, physically preparing, putting in the work, you're never going to get there. I feel like I don't know if somebody just showed up to a match one day and accidentally won a national championship. It may have happened. I'm not sure, but it's a lot. Anybody who's had any success at that level, I respect their efforts a lot, because I know.
Oh, absolutely, man. That takes mad respect for the amount of dedication that it takes to do that. And everything from shooting the sequence of matches, I was talking to Corson Piper. He's up here in the Northwest. That dude shot something like 32 matches in a year. Right. That's basically almost every waking weekend is dedicated to, because he's got a day job. Right. And so,
right. Well, that's the other thing. Burnout.
Tremendous amount of effort.
How do you fight that?
Yeah. How do you fight that? The only way that you can fight that is to just out-train, right?
Yeah.
Out-train, right?
In my opinion, is having a system like I discussed, right? Because now I just have to follow this blueprint. Just follow it. And then, go to a few matches and go, okay, well, the blueprint's working pretty good, but it's getting me top 10, whatever. Okay, well, what can I change in the system to perhaps make it a little better? Okay,
sure.
And that now that gives me something to work on. Not trying to win matches, just work on the system. And my idea is that one day that system's going to be good enough to start winning.
Yep.
If I tweak the system, but I don't know. I think just showing up and trying to win a match is a lot harder than showing up and following a system that one day will be good enough so that the win just happens. You follow what I'm saying? And it's a lot. I absolutely do. For me, it's a lot easier to follow a system long term than it is to, he went to 32 matches, and I'm like, my goodness, I couldn't do that. It's tough.
Yeah.
And kudos to him. I mean, that just takes tremendous amount of effort.
Yeah,
to stay sharp my goodness, that's crazy. But
it's a lot. Yeah, and those are mixed 2 days and 1 days, and yeah, and those dudes, the guys on the west side of Washington here. I live in Washington State. These guys will drive. Corson will drive his nearest his nearest shooting location to go train or shoot a match is a 4.5 hour drive. And that's coming here to Yakima. Yeah. Cause there's nothing on the west side of the mountains there used to be like one club, and they shut it down, and now everybody's got to come over to the east side of the mountain. So, yeah, tremendous dedication there, man. And I'm like, it's one of those things that I'm like I'm excited. Like I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm motivated. And, yeah, I'm stoked. I'm stoked for going out and shooting. So, man, this was a fantastic, I think this is a great point to cut this one off, Erik. And, let's take a little bit of like maybe 2-minute break. I'm going to kick this live stream off for the fireside chat. And, we got some questions in here from, our MDS club members for you. And, just give me like maybe 2 minutes to reconfigure that. Perfect. And, put this link up for the live feed. If you got to go hit the head, and, we'll kick this off here in just a few minutes.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.